Okay, at the beginning, actually, the question I asked you was the difference between the AJAX and the ASP.NET as technologies. Simply and very briefly, ASP.NET and AJAX, they do not meet straightforward because we cannot compare English to Arabic, but since they are scripting languages. ASP.NET actually it is a framework where we can use the controls, the Microsoft controls, the toolbox controls from the IDE we use, which is the Visual Studio, and we can create a full application using the ASP.NET. Yet the Ajax, it's a tool that can help us to add interactivity. It's the asynchronous uh, mode of use of the controls to populate them or to display or to render content, something like that. So this is a framework where we can create applications, the ASP.NET, and the Ajax, it's a tool to add effects or to add dynamicity to what we have created using the ASP.NET. So to enhance the ASP.NET experience, we use the Ajax. So ASP.NET can help us to generate applications. Ajax, it's not actually it is not meant or said to create applications, but to add effect and interactivity inside into a designated application. And as per the first definition we given to Ajax, we said that it is built on the use of the JavaScript and XML. AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So it's the combination of the use of the JavaScript and XML upon a web page or web, let's say, interface, yes, but in an asynchronous mode. Asynchronous mode means we do not have to make a full submission to the page in order to succeed. Finalize the function in question or finalize the rendering or whatever. No, we need only the part in question, asynchronous. The control, the toolbox. Sorry, we know the combo box or the text box, or the label or whatever the control we are using. We are which is using the Ajax. It is only to be rendered and it is only to be submitted or something like that. That's what we're talking about asynchronous. It is not a programming language at the end of the day, as we were saying. It is a sort of a combination of both. The JavaScript as a scripting language, the XML as, let's say, a tag-based language. Both of them, they would be utilized to add effect, to enhance the work experience, whether an asynchronous, whether actually an ASP.NET application. It is to help submitting data between the browser and the service provider. The browser and the service provider. Service provider, we talk about the web server, usually mainly. And according to, and actually this is as per the abstract definition of the Ajax, but here in our context we are using the Ajax upon ASP.NET applications. We are not using Ajax in any web platform. No, we are concerned with the ASP.NET. So we are talking about Microsoft related and mainly the .NET framework. So Ajax, since it is to help make a combination of both the JavaScript and the XML and to help the interactivity in between the service provider and the browser, and it is to be done in asynchronous mode. It is not a programming language. So what is it? It's a sort of group of functionalities predefined, stored in a library, which is DLL, which is a Microsoft based in our context. And this DLL would help and provide developers with ready-made control functions to, yes, make the function ready just by a simple drag and drop or just simple call. They do not need to rewrite the code again. No, the thing is available in a DLL file, which is actually, here we are talking about the Microsoft environment only, Microsoft framework, which is the .NET. It is true and valid, and it would be actually usable within a Microsoft product, within a Microsoft environment only. features of the AJAX. We are having still we are having a small recap. We are not having something new. This is so you can understand it very clearly. Features of what he actually features of the AJAX technology here means it is not an advantage, but those are what functionalities the AJAX can give. Those are not the advantages, but the functionalities. Because advantages we see them just in a while. AJAX helps to make the process of the binding in lifetime. Means the application does not need to have binded in a pre-render mode or in a, let's say at the load event. No, it can be done in live mode, lifetime mode, or live runtime mode. So it can be done, yes. It is a client side only. Means the AJAX would run from the client side only. So it actually can be stored in a client side instance, means in an instance in a web page or something like that, and used during the runtime only, whenever needed. And it would be actually used again and again and again and again. Not only that, mainly actually it is the best experience with the AJAX is to work with an example, but even though just to have nominations of when we say actually instantiation of client components. So it is an experience via which we can see objects be generated during the runtime. Objects like web components, like the let's say a text box to appear only during the runtime. A drop-down menu appear only during the runtime error, runtime let's say runtime only. A form, a full form, completely appears only during the runtime. Registration of a content and submission of a value during the runtime only. So the instantiation of components here actually it's one of the features the AJAX can do. Actually, later on, I may ask you in an exam. Remember, concentrate with me. Be with me, please. Here, I may ask you: is a submission of a form an instantiation of a component, a web component? I will say right now. So, actually, I might ask you a descriptive question, or I must ask you true or false. Instantiation of a component or client component is submission of a form, or can be a submission of a form, a web form, using the AJAX. Answer is no, because submission of form is a value to pass instantiation of a component. What is the component? We have to define. Component, we may talk about any control that the .NET can enhance. So answer is false, is no. And basically, since we said that the AJAX is built on the JavaScript and XML actually as technologies, so we may see AJAX working with arrays also, like here we talk about objects or arrays. We will have actually some of the to make you understand. Actually, we may talk about the list of values or resources stored in a browser's cache being utilized by the AJAX let's say predefined methods to populate controls. More than that, actually, the AJAX can help us bind with backend solutions and populate data from backend solutions. To bind with backend solutions, we need to have a connection with layer 2, enhance the connectivity with the backend. The Adult.NET is the solution, and the AJAX can call AutoDetect methods to accomplish the binding. AJAX can call, invoke the AutoDetect functionalities to accomplish the binding or the connectivity or the population or the data retrieval. Within the .NET framework, the AJAX or the AJAX has the capability to visualize content using data view control. There is a dedicated control for this AJAX that can be utilized to populate data, visualize data at the end of the day, populate and visualize both. Why? Because the AJAX, since we said that it is a technology enhanced by Microsoft with a DLL library, so we have a dedicated predefined methods and we have a dedicated list of controls to use in order to accomplish the work of the AJAX with an ASP.NET solution. We see the list of the controls just in a while. Now about the advantages, not the features, the advantages themselves. So when we say that the AJAX would help us to populate the control, okay, what is the enhancement? What is the added value the AJAX can bring when we compare it with the, let's say, single mode binding or the repeated value mode binding or something like that? What's the difference? Why should we talk about the AJAX? We have actually using the single mode population, let's say, or like a single value mode binding, we can just accomplish the binding of a control. Why should we think about using the AJAX? No, there are advantages. There are advantages because applications do not expect to see a web application used by only 1 or 2 or 3 users only. If I ask you the number of users of the EduWave, how many are they? How many users we have that they can use actually? Or it's not that they can, but that they use effectively the EduWave here in our campus, in our university. We have thousands of users, and most of them students, and most of them inspectors, and most of them technicians, and most of them the administrators, the CIS people, most of them the let's say the managerial staff. Thousands and thousands. And as per scenario, if we are talking about a lifetime usage, like the period we are in, today we are starting the registration, the period of registration, summer course. How many users actually are going to use the EduWave? All the students that they are going to register during the summer course, all the faculty and all the let's say advisors. There will be a bunch of thousands of users per same time using the same resources, means the same interfaces at the same time. They are all requesting registration interfaces, courses interfaces, timetable interfaces, student profiles, things like that. All of them, they are asking the same resources at the same time. What's the problem? Why we are talking about this? Because we used to experience a latency when the registration period is actually going on. And we will see it also today, and still we will experience, because actually this is the normal behavior of a system during the peak time. The registration period for the EduWave is a peak time. Everybody are going to use the same resource at the same time. So what does it mean an application or application is getting late and it is demonstrating a latency? There are resources, technology actually it is defined here. There are actually some constraints which are actually happening, and most of them the bandwidth. What is the bandwidth? Actually, the connectivity to the service provider. There is actually a client server connectivity. Client is your browser or the user's browser. the server or the service provider has one entry point given to everybody. Let's say everybody, they are actually segregated across the country and even across the globe. There is no problem here. Yet the service provider has a one entry for everybody, since they are using the same resource at the same time. So the same entry is given to everybody. Here we are talking about a bandwidth dedicated to that web application. The bandwidth is the capability or the size of data being transferred in and out from clients to the web server. Bandwidth. The advantages is that the AJAX actually present is that it is to ameliorate the use of the bandwidth. Why? Because it is not equal. If you're saying that per second we are having million requests and that each request is a web page, is a full web page. It's not the same when you say we are having the same million requests but not a web page. One control per request. There is a difference. A web page, it might have the size of, let's say, 1 megabyte. But one control, it would have the size of 1 kilobyte. There is 1,000 times of difference between the 1 megabyte to 1 kilobyte, as per an example. Thus, the AJAX demonstrates a clear amelioration of the bandwidth utilization. Can you just redefine what is the advantage related to the bandwidth utilization, please? I might give you extra marks actually in the final or out of 100, whatever. If you just redefine how I define the context of the amelioration brought by the AJAX when using the bandwidth, regarding the use of the bandwidth. Can you redefine it, please? Extra maybe 2 marks. We'll discuss the number, the value, how much. Are you following me?
Yes.
Okay, great, yes, great, good. No worries. Another advantage the AJAX can bring, actually we can see it, or the developers can experience, and also the end users can experience, is that when updating and populating controls, not a full page is going to be submitted, but only a partial part from the given page is going to be submitted and updated. What does mean partial part? Only a text box, only a button, only a drop-down menu, only a list box, only a table. So it's only a part is going to be submitted and populated with new values, would be updated. So there will be no full page submission. No, only control or only a given part from the page is going to be submitted and updated. Using the AJAX here, we are talking about the advantage of the use of the AJAX. Without the AJAX, we can't talk about this. We have to submit the full page in question in order to update it. But every time a part is needed to be updated without AJAX, the full page has to be updated. But with the AJAX, only that part can be, let's say, submitted for update. Since we are talking about small parts from a page to be submitted, not the full page, and we are talking about bandwidth utilization, so there will be actually a time, let's say, a reduction when we talk about the use of the application in question. We will see an application more faster, and replies and, let's say, responses from the web server more faster, so reach a better experience. So results will be shown quickly. And from the advantages also, visualized actually controls can be utilized due to the AJAX. Means due to the use of the AJAX, there can be actually the possibility of using visual controls to run and to be actually given lifetime effects within the page in question. Like the example here of the timers, as per an example, or the load percentage here, progress indicators. Load percentage, which are the progress indicators, like, for example, the circles that they keep circulating, saying that the page is loading, 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 loading. Here we talk about the percentage of the loading progress indicator, or a timer, time count. So those are actually enhanced features, let's say functionalities. They do represent an advantage due to the use of the AJAX. And all of those features actually they are considered to be an advantage. Why? Because when you say that the lifetime binding is possible, so there is an advantage, which is not to be possible actually to be implemented, or let's say fulfilled without AJAX. It is easy to reach and runtime to populate the control without AJAX. So the features, all of them, they are considered to be an advantage. Any questions, please, at this level? Any questions, any requests at this level? Okay, we continue. It's not, the life is not usually pink. It's not usually happy. It's not usually advantageous. Means we are not going to survive a very advantageous life when we are using an ASP.NET on top of the use of AJAX, that uses AJAX or that implements AJAX. No, there are disadvantages. There are negative. There is a negative side from this uh, technology, the AJAX. Remember that the AJAX is a combination of the use of the JavaScript and the XML. What does it mean? It means that if a browser does not support or is blocking the use of the JavaScript, like the example here, the full AJAX functionality would be actually blocked. So there will be no, there will be actually an issue when using the AJAX. JavaScript is blocked. JavaScript is not going to be operating. So at the end of the day, the AJAX will not run since the JavaScript does not run. It is a disadvantage because we need a browser that enables the use of the JavaScript to run the AJAX. And due to the same reason, search engines like all the famous search engines, they can not run or operate properly if the JavaScript is not enabled. If the JavaScript not enabled, why? Because they are using the AJAX. When you talk about the live search, like the Google, you just start typing and you see the results. How it happens? This is due to the use of the AJAX. And if the JavaScript is not enabled, so there will be actually a problematic view visualizing contents actually, and there will be actually a non-stability when running search queries over, let's say, the search engines. Why? Because JavaScript is not enabled. Beside of that, from the disadvantages, how the AJAX is going to run, it is something that a human being can read. It is to be explored, means the thing it is not in back-end, it is in the client side. So if hackers try to explore the architecture of the AJAX solution, it is possible, since they would be actually having a copy, an instance from the AJAX functionalities used within the application. So this is a security concern. This is a digital security concern. Digital security, computer security, cyber security concern. This is due to what? Due to that the AJAX is a client side. The features here, remember the features we said that the AJAX is a client side. So due to this feature, there is a security, let's say actually disadvantage, security issue, security concern. The AJAX is to be actually to be interpreted, because remember that we are using the XML, and the XML is a tag-based language. It used to be run on the web, yes, like it's an HTML like. We are talking about rendering content. It is easy to debug. It is difficult to debug. It is difficult to debug. Means in order to make a debugging process on an AJAX, let's say running let's say a solution, it is not something easy, because it needs more than one part to run or to accomplish. We need the JavaScript, and we need the XML, and we maybe need also the HTML, and since we are talking about the ASP.NET solution, so we need an ASP.NET instance. So it is not easy to debug a solution, to see what is the problem, or to see how the behavior is going on. Debugging. The debugging is not easy. It is a complicated process. And they're giving you one of the reasons. Since the AJAX-based application uses the JavaScript, an instance from an XML, an instance maybe from an HTML, an instance from the ASP.NET. So to follow up the process, how it is going on, we need all of those instances, and we have to go, let's say, sequentially, step by step. It is not something that we can follow easily. The debugging is not an easy process on top of the use of the AJAX within ASP.NET solutions. Since it is given a chance as an advantage to ameliorate the, let's say, the use of the bandwidth, and here actually there will be actually only portions of the page to be submitted. So there is a free space to be gained inside the bandwidth. Thus, more requests to be seen. And more requests means the same scenario. We will come back to the same point from where we start. We made actually due to the use of the AJAX, there is a bandwidth amelioration, and due to that only, there is another space to be utilized. And the bandwidth amelioration means actually faster work, faster results. But with more requests, there is no faster request, since we are coming with the same, let's say, congestion status of the bandwidth. The bandwidth would be actually seen congested again. So increase of requests. This is a disadvantage. And this is exactly what congestion means: slower replies. More latency means we come back to the same scenario where the application is slow. And another disadvantage, which is very important, which is the back button. An application that uses the AJAX to update control, to update instances from a web page. It is not easy to make an update, actually, to make a back step, because the page did not load, did not refresh, did not resubmit, get resubmit. So there will be no back button. There will be no back button. Comparison between the AJAX and the JavaScript. If actually we saw that will not pass by. Will not pass by. We say that the actually the AJAX is asynchronous. Asynchronous. Why? Because a small part from a web page is going to be submitted for update. Only small part. Means we click a button. Okay. There will be only the submission of the value of the button. And only the part will be updated. The page will not get reloaded. No, it will not close and open. It will not refresh. This is an asynchronous submission. But regarding the synchronous submission, the full page is going to be submitted. If you click submit, the full page will load. And thus, if we talk about the synchronous mode, this issue here, this problematic view related to the back button will not be seen, because when the page loads, there will be a history. So we can go back step, actually, as many as we have loaded the page and so on. Synchronous and asynchronous. Any requests, please? Any questions at this level, please?
No.
Okay, if you hear your name, just say yes, please.